The power of your true voice. You sound like those Instagram activists, not a real lawyer. The words dropped into the hall, like a coin hitting marble, soft yet sharp enough to turn every head toward their source. Karoline Levitt stood there in her white blazer, blonde hair perfectly styled, a slight smirk on her face as she stared at Jasmine Crockett, who still held the microphone steady. The room went silent. Someone shifted in their chair. A small laugh escaped from the second row, then vanished as quickly as it came. No one noticed a silver-haired man in the back row. No badge, no media team, just a gray suit and quiet presence. Once a federal judge, he knew Jasmine better than anyone in that room. Jasmine said nothing. She simply waited, choosing silence as her first response. The hall had filled hours earlier for the debate on language and politics and justice. The unspoken question hanging in the air. Where's the line between simplicity and sophistry? Everyone knew who would represent which side. Karoline had arrived with her entourage, camera crew, photographers, press secretary, speaking loudly enough to draw attention. She was accustomed to crafting sound bites, to environments where every word was calculated for maximum impact. Jasmine had come alone an hour early with just a small notebook. Its pages were folded at the corners, a few lines marked in blue ink. That was how she prepared. Not to impress, but to remember what mattered. When Karoline began her remarks, she opened with classical Latin quotes, each one properly cited. Her voice was poised, evenly paced, precisely stressed like a well-rehearsed speech. Every example she gave targeted one kind of person, someone who didn't cite sources, who used everyday stories, who spoke as if live streaming. Someone like Jasmine. And when legal language is reduced to social media slogans, Karoline continued, we lose the capacity for reasoning and eventually the public's trust. A smattering of applause. We must distinguish between lawyers and those who perform for virality. Karoline turned toward Jasmine for the first time. It's unfortunate that some here choose to deliver justice like an Instagram Live. Catchy voice, snappy lines, and conclusions fit only for the comment section. The room held its breath. The moderator leaned forward, hand hovering over the mic button, ready to intervene. Jasmine calmly slid her notebook closer and turned on her microphone. Her voice came through, neither raised nor quiet. If you think my words are too simple, maybe it's because what I'm saying is too real. No one laughed. Several people leaned forward, drawn in by some quiet gravity. I choose a language people understand, not because I think less of them, but because I believe they deserve to speak the same language as justice. The room was no longer neutral. Those who had been silent gripped the edges of their chairs. A young woman in the second row placed a hand over her chest, and from the very back, a chair scraped. The silver-haired man stood up. She doesn't need me to defend her, he said, his voice low but commanding. But I will not let anyone reduce integrity just because someone used simple words. No one interrupted. No phone rang. No pages turned. The way she speaks is not a flaw. It's a choice, he continued, each word delivered as if reading a verdict he'd weighed for a lifetime. I once saw Jasmine stand before a witness, a man who hadn't finished 6th grade, and she said 3 words. Tell me why. That man cried, then confessed. And we found a child who had been abandoned. He turned toward Jasmine. No smile, no nod. Don't judge a lawyer by how they begin a sentence. Judge them by where that sentence ends. Silence filled the hall, not from fear, but because no one dared interrupt a moment they knew would be remembered for years. After what felt like an eternity, Jasmine turned to the moderator and quietly asked, "May I say something?" No one objected. "He's my father," she said. All eyes turned to the silver-haired man. He didn't move, didn't nod again, didn't smile. When I was 16, Jasmine continued, I was rejected from the debate team because the judges said I sounded like I was arguing at the dinner table. My mother told me to change how I speak, but my father said nothing. Her voice remained calm. No tears, no sign of seeking sympathy, just a story. A month later, I went back. I tried again. That time I spoke exactly the way I think. I didn't win, but a girl standing behind me held my hand and said, Thank you for speaking that way. I was rejected once too because of my voice. She paused and added, I haven't changed my voice since. No one applauded. No one dared. I don't choose language to impress. I choose it, so I'll never have to apologize one day for saying the right thing the wrong way. The room remained silent. Karoline drew a deep breath but said nothing. Eventually, the moderator spoke quietly. Thank you both for your remarks. Nothing more. No recap. No declaration of who prevailed. But everyone left carrying something with them. That night, a clip less than 2 minutes long, Jasmine speaking, her father's intervention, was shared online. No music added, no effects applied, just raw footage with a simple caption. A voice doesn't define the truth, but truth can silence a room. Within 24 hours, it surpassed 3 million views. What made it spread wasn't drama. It was the absence of it. No shouting, no rebuttals, no grabbing mics. Just a story and a father's quiet defense. Quotes began circulating everywhere. One post from the American Institute of Language and Justice stated, when we judge a lawyer by their voice instead of the way of their argument, we shift the focus from justice to performance. A woman from Georgia wrote, I used to stay quiet at parent meetings, afraid I'd sound too country. Today, I showed this video to my daughter. She said, you sound like her mom, and I knew I'd never apologize for how I speak again. A law school dean shared the clip. My students often ask, does my voice sound lawyer enough, professor? I won't answer that anymore. I'll show them this. At Howard University, a professor played the clip for his class after a student asked, if I speak with a southern accent or a rural one, can I still practice law? The entire class went silent. Former defendants, people once dismissed for their regional accents, for using plain language, began sharing their own stories. A petition calling on legal institutions to recognize vocal diversity gathered over 250,000 signatures in just 2 days. Law schools began to shift. Lessons once centered on oratory techniques now included a new section, the social impact of accessible speech. Karoline eventually stepped back from public debates. When asked if she thought she was wrong, she simply said, I think I underestimated the power of silence. For once, she had nothing more to add. As for Jasmine, she didn't return to television or write op-eds. She simply continued her work. But everywhere she had once spoken, community forums, local hearings, training sessions became overbooked. People didn't come to learn argumentation skills. They came to learn something not found in any textbook. How to hold on to your voice even when the world tries to replace it with something more polished. A year later, in the center of a hall, a bronze microphone was placed unplugged. Not for a campaign, not for a personality, but for a moment when the world paused to hear a way of speaking that sounded like none of the ones once deemed correct. The story doesn't end there, because somewhere out there, someone still hasn't spoken. A student afraid to raise their hand. An elderly person who hesitates to share. A survivor who still can't testify because their words don't sound eloquent enough. If you've ever held back because you thought, my voice isn't right, remember that room. Remember the mic that never made a sound yet stopped a nation in its tracks. Remember the story told without technique that helped millions see themselves. And ask yourself, the thing you've never said, might it be worth the whole world stopping to hear it?